today's practice, you're probably going to need a bolster or something along these lines, maybe a couple of cushions that you can fold up, or a blanket. You'll definitely need a blanket, so have your blanket to hand. And if you have a brick or two, so it's your normal standard fare. I've always got to hand these things to practice yin. The bolster is a luxury. The bricks really should be a part of your standard practice, to have a couple of these or similar. So a couple of cushions, or some books, or something that you can use to prop yourself up. So our first position is going to be a reclining one, because we're going to focus on the breath. So you could just lie with your bolster maybe underneath you. My preference, however, is to do something like this. So I'll set this up, because this is what, you know, ideally I would like you to do. So you've got one brick on its side, one brick on its end, and then your blanket folded a bit like this and laid over the top. Okay, so that then you have an incline to the way that you're lying. So basically, this is what I want you to seek out, is some way that you can prop yourself up. Now, tradition, you know, standard in classes gone by, times gone by, we've always propped the bolster up like this, using blocks and things like that underneath it. So if you have some way of lying in a supported fashion like this, then go for it. I mean, for instance, if you like, oh, we've got a bean bag next door, and a bean bag is great because you can kind of wedge it and shape it and mould it into what you want. But yeah, so have a play. I'm looking for this slight incline, no greater than 45-degree angle, and so that your head and your heart are slightly higher. Okay, and what you do with your leg position is entirely your choice. You could have your knees bent, you could have your legs straight, you could take a butterfly. We're going to come into a butterfly position next, so that means the legs in a diamond shape. So if you love the diamond shape for the legs, then go for it. But if it's not your favourite position, then maybe leave it out, because it is going to be the next pose. However, having said that, you could sit with your legs in a crossed position, or in Padmasana, so lotus or half lotus, making sure that you allocate some time for doing both crosses of the legs, or both sides. The arms can come out down by your sides with your palms facing the ceiling. And if you want, you can close your eyes and maybe cover the eyes with the arm of a jumper or an eye pillow, whatever you have to hand. And just let the body begin to settle. Find this soft resting position that you can be really comfortable in. And I'd like you to breathe in and out through your nose. And that will be standard for the whole of this practice. Breathing in and out through the nose. And watching the breath, not forcing or straining, but maybe starting to gently deepen the breath. And this position affords us to do a couple of things. So while we're here in this supported reclining position, you might be able to feel the breath moving downwards into the lower part, the lower part of the lung space, but the upper part of the diaphragm, the abdomen. So I'm thinking about where the navel is, up to where the diaphragm is, being the upper part of the diaphragm, abdomen. And I want you to breathe into there, or at least allow your diaphragm to move freely enough so that the breath can travel into this region. Now, some of us are naturally belly breathers, and we've talked about how this is the ideal place to breathe into, simply because we're really using the lower part, the lower lobes of the lungs. However, some of us, and it is some of us, you know, not everybody, but some of us are naturally chest breathers. So I want you to be aware of where you think you are. So if you feel that as you are beginning to lengthen and slow the breath, if it's naturally moving into the abdomen, then you are a belly breather. But if this is something you have to really labour, and I maybe don't just judge it on this one occasion, give it a few tries. Lots of you have been practicing this very regularly with me over the past few months, and so therefore you will be becoming more and more aware of your natural state of breathing. But if it isn't to breathe into your belly and it is to breathe into your lungs, your chest, then that's fine. But isn't it nice to be aware and to be connected and in tune with our own body so we can work harmoniously? And so when you do go to a yoga class and your yoga teacher says to you, oh, you got to breathe into your belly, you got to breathe into let your tummy rise on the inhale, and you're having a fight with this, and you're thinking, actually, well, that's okay if it isn't your natural state of breathing. All right, so we've been here for a little while, so it should be feeling comfortable. If you are cross-legging your legs, then you need to change the cross of your legs for this next half of the pose. And now that we've been breathing for a little while, I want you to see whether you can slowly count to 5 on the inhalations and the exhalations. And just like normal, there should be no force or strain to the breath. If there is, feel free to reduce the count down to 4. Now, what I'm looking for is for you to listen to the sound that your breath is making. And I'd like the sound of your breath to be continuous. So throughout the length of the inhale, can you keep the sound the same? And likewise for the exhale, can it maintain the same quality all of the way through? Good. So if you need a simple focus for your practice today, maybe to clear the mind, maybe just to give yourself a bit of a break from whatever else that you've been absorbed by, then this is what I want you to stay focused on. You're counting the breath for 5, in and out, and looking to maintain the quality of the breath so it doesn't taper off or it doesn't rush at the start. Okay, you want it to maintain the same quality through the duration of the inhalations and the exhalations. And this is really important because this will help you to start to refine your practice a little bit more deeply, so that then the next stage of your yin practice will be to become less aware of the breath, ironically. But we have to start somewhere. We have to have this focus. And as you've all been focusing on different techniques with me over the past few weeks, but now we're going to try to refine it a little bit so it becomes a little bit more skilled. So yeah, so that's your next focus, is to breathe in for 5, out for 5, and maintain the same quality of the breath throughout. And then for those of you that want to maybe center your practice on an energy level, taking it away from the work of the breath, I then want you to take your attention to your heart. And if you can imagine your heart center, so this is the center of energy, not the heart, the beating heart, not the organ, but the energy center that lies in the middle of your chest. And even if you can't necessarily feel your heart energy center, imagine it. You can pretend it's okay, because sometimes it's really hard to connect with these energy centers if you're not used to it, but it takes training and practice, and you'll get there. So just imagine it or feel it if you can sense it. Breathe in and out through here now for these last few moments of this pose. All right. And then if your legs are crossed, I'd like you to uncross them. If the knees are bent, I'd like you to straighten the legs. And just begin to bring a little bit of movement into the lower limbs. Then you can all bend your knees and either lift yourself up or gently roll to one side to come down, just to lay on your side for a moment, leg curled up, and just experience what we call the rebound. So they're coming out. What happens? How do you feel? All right. And then you can pick yourself up, come up to sit, and we're going to sit with the legs in a butterfly, in a diamond shaped position. Now, the further you have your feet away from you, the more of the hamstrings and the kind of the back of the leg line is affected. The closer that the heels are in towards you, you can feel the inner thighs are a bit more intensely involved, and you've got more work going on in the hips. Now, as you start the practice, you'll notice the knees are up quite high, unless you're very ordinarily very open into the hip space. So you can leave the knees there if you want to, or if you find that it's going to be easier for you, you might want to go for a kind of happy medium and have the feet not too close, not too far. You can always put things underneath the knees to support them, so a cushion underneath each side so that you don't feel that the joints are kind of hanging around in midair. And then the other thing that is optional, if you have it to hand, is to take your yoga strap, and you can make a really big loop with it and then loop it in a figure of 8 around your knees, so they have something to cradle against, so they don't feel like they're hanging around in midair. There's that option there that you might like, but there is also the other option to take the strap around the back, so right down low across the back of the sacrum, and then tuck it underneath the front of the feet. And then you've got to obviously adjust just make sure that it's nice and tight, and that the buckle of the strap is not resting on your body. And then that will allow you to just a little bit of tightness here. It's not my favourite one. This is better for when you're lying down, in fact. As the moment you fold forwards in a minute, it's going to get a little bit looser, so you have to have it quite tightly tied up. But the best one is the figure of 8 for what we're going to do, or support with the knees. So I can see you all playing around with straps and things like that. But essentially what you're going to be doing is folding forwards. So other options are also available, making sure that your hips are comfortable. So if you need to sit on your bolster, because that is quite nice. If you're feeling it's a struggle to be in this position and fold forwards, just lose the extra props, then actually sitting on something, legs in a diamond shape, and folding forwards can actually become much more accessible. You might find you need some support for the knees because you're a little bit higher up. This will get you a deeper opening into the hips, the inner part of the groin, if that's what you're looking for. However, there's more of a strain here. You're having to fold more forwards more deeply, so it's a little bit more upright, a little bit more active. So you could play around with supporting your head, and this is quite nice. So just have a little bit of a play, see what you feel is comfortable for you. You don't have to have any props whatsoever. You could just be sitting here, folding forwards into this space and enjoying. Okay, so I'll let you do what you feel is comfortable and appropriate for you. And now that we're getting a little bit more juicy, okay, first pose very much kind of arriving, settling, connecting in with our bodies. But after this, now we're getting into more of the connective tissue awareness, and we're starting to put forces through the body that are causing the body to open, to lengthen, or to have weight being put through them, pressure. And we call this, in yin yoga, we call this stress. We want to stress the tissues of the body in a good way, in a productive and a safe way, so that the tissues of the body can stay healthy, can stay vital, can stay hydrated. And it's that classic of, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. If you don't work different parts of the body, then the body over time says, well, there's no point in regenerating that area of the body or keeping it strong, because it's just not being used. Okay, so we're in our forward fold. Please remember that you must make sure there's no pins and needles here. So if you're in the pose and after a while you get a little, like your feet start to go numb, or you get pins and needles, then you're perhaps in the pose too deeply or for too long a time. So you've got to be your own judge on that, because you're the only one that knows how it feels to be inside your skin. So be your own judge, and if you need to adjust the pose, or if you need to come out sooner than I suggest, that's okay. All right. So we're going to go back to the breathing in and out for 5. And although we have altered the position of our bodies, can we retain the steady, even quality to the breath? Are you able to stay not only aware of what's obvious, which is the movement of the breath and the different changing shapes within maybe your lungs, your rib cage, your shoulders, your low back, but are you able to drop into the more subtle awarenesses of the breath? So this is the spaces and the stillness that naturally occurs in between the breaths. These aren't easy spaces often as we begin our exploration of Yin Yoga. Having said that, the only true stillness of the body is when the body pauses in between the breaths. So if we're looking for that ultimate place of stillness, then we look for the pauses and we ask, can we sit in those pauses for longer and longer? And for those of you that maybe meditate regularly or have practiced yoga for a long time, maybe very good at different types of meditation that kind of slow and calm the body, then you may well already be in that place where you can drop into the breath, becoming less important, which sounds ironic because obviously we have to keep breathing to stay alive. But as we become more proficient at this, what actually happens is that the breath gets shallower, believe it or not, and we don't need to breathe so often. There's a saying in the yoga world that the less often you have to breathe, the longer you'll live. Your body has to work much less. It's got to work less than the ordinary person. Obviously, we balance this with this balance with effort and effortlessness. So getting the heart rate up, exercising, moving blood around the body, more cardio is still valid, still has a good healthy place. But this is what we're doing now. We're balancing the yang aspects of our life with the yin. And yin asks us to slow, to steady, to be still. And that comes into the breath too. Well done, everyone. So you're going to stay here, if you can, for one more minute. If you would like to come out sooner, then please do. Okay. All right, so as you gently take your next inhalation, begin to pick yourself up. And I would always suggest cradling the knees as you bring the knees back towards the center before sliding the feet down towards the end of the mat. And then maybe just leaning back into the hands, and you could lift the heart a couple of times and roll the shoulders back, and then bring the body back to its neutral position. And do this a couple of times as you just release the spine in the opposite direction. You might need to move the legs, you might need to move the feet. You could rock the feet from side to side, for instance. Okay, so do whatever. This is that lovely rebound. This is where we feel our body adjusting to what has just occurred, and maybe rebalancing, regrouping afterwards. Okay, So because we've forward folded, I'd like to take a bit of a back bend, and I'm going to give you two choices, okay? The first choice is a standard Sphinx pose where you lay on your tummy, prop yourself up onto your elbows, and you're going to lie like this. Or you could take a seal pose and come up into a deeper back bend. So they're options number one. Option number two, for those of you that have that are comfortable in your knees, in your kneeling practice, is to come into saddle pose. Now I practice this with my big toes together and my knees wider apart, so the knees are out to the longer edges of the mat. The heels are what I'm sitting on, so if you know that that isn't going to be comfortable for your ankles or whatever, then you must maybe change what you're sitting on. So you could sit on your brick and you can take your feet into more of a hero pose position so that they're at the edges of your hips here with your toes pointing back. So there's always options, always ways of adapting things. So you just be your own best judge. My preference is to sit on my feet, but that's because my feet don't hurt or the tops of my ankles don't hurt when I do this. I've got something behind me to lie back onto. You again don't have to have anything there at all. I've got my support going along, so it's going to support the whole of my spine. But equally, you could maybe, if you're comfortable with this, you can turn your support across the mat so that you are bringing your head down and shoulders down towards the floor behind you. You're supporting your lower back with your props there. So you've got that as an option. There's always ways of modifying these things. For those of you that are coming back into saddle, so this is, if your knees are grumpy doing this, please don't force yourself to do it. If the knees come off of the floor, that's fine, they don't have to stay down. But as you lean back, what I would suggest that you do is you pick your hips up and point your tailbone in between your knees to put space and length into your lower back. So then you can come down to lie, and you might want a little bit of something underneath your head to give yourself a little bit of a lift. If this feels if you want to practice this pose but it feels too low, then again, just like we did before, you could prop the supports up to 45 degrees. So you put more things underneath you, lie yourself back down, and you could be in the pose in a kind of heart, sort of towards this angle, just lying down, which is very, very lovely. And I definitely recommend it. But if you're not happy on your knees, you're doing Sphinx pose, okay? Or seal. I know that some of you really like this one, so it's a great opportunity to stretch out the front of the hips and the quads, particularly relevant, if you are doing other activities, other exercise like running, other cardio work, weights, that sort of thing, then this might be a really lovely complement to some of the other exercise forms that you may be taking on. So yeah, have a play with this. Be as supported as you need to. If you're very, very flexible and you want to just lie on the floor in this position, go for it. Okay, that's what we would do in a normal, hatha yoga class. Some of you that might want a bigger stretch could take your arms alongside your ears and hold your opposite elbows and just kind of wrap the arms around the top of the head. Again, closing the eyes and settling into the position, so making all the adjustments that you need so that you can then remain in the pose and still. And the first minute or so of the pose might be intense, might be really, really strong in the body. Let's have a look. Okay. And that's okay. That's normal and to be expected. This is a big pose. For those of you that are in Sphinx, maybe lying on your tummy, Maybe experiment, as we've talked about in other classes, with where the feet are on your mat. So you could try taking the feet wide apart or having them close together. Depends where you feel that you would like the stimulation. The low back is the area that we're focusing on to in this pose. And we're giving the kidney area a little bit of a boost. So all the poses in today's practice very much have a kidney energy theme. Kidney energy in Chinese medicine is very responsible for kind of keeping everything moving around, moving upwards. And it's our sense of energy, our vitality, okay, that kind of essence of wanting to do stuff, being bothered to do things. The kidneys are very good, however, at knowing when they need to rest or be rested. And we can see this because in Chinese medicine, all the energy meridians are associated with a particular element. And the kidney energy is associated with the element of water. And the wonderful thing about, if you think about the qualities of water, it has different states, doesn't it? Ice, liquid, so solid, liquid or gas. But it has both the qualities of softness, but also of great strength. It has the ability to change its shape so that it can move gracefully around things, but it also has the potential for great force and great destruction. And we have all of these qualities within us. And so the kidneys, therefore, they like a little bit of a boost. We like to kind of pick our energy up when we're feeling lethargic, when we're feeling in that can't be bothered place. But sometimes we also need to know when it is time to rest. And many people consider yin yoga as constructive rest, like a shavasana, like an opportunity for true stillness within the body. Better than, slobbing on the sofa and watching, reruns of Friends, which there is a time and a place for, isn't there? Just as there is a time and a place for everything. Okay. So if you've been breathing in and out steadily, breathing in for 5, out for 5, through the duration of this pose, you can keep going with that for the last minute of the practice. Or for those that want to, you can again take your attention into your heart. Think about the energetic center of the heart. And we use this one so readily, so frequently, because it's easy to feel, especially in this open position where we're taking a back bend. We can feel the chest opening and the breath moving easily, perhaps, steadily. So when you're ready, if you are laying on your front, then maybe come down gently to lie down onto the ground. If you're in saddle pose, then you have the choice of either lifting the hips and freeing the legs and then rolling to one side, or you can pick yourself up. Do try to do this fairly evenly, and then you can roll forwards maybe into child's pose, or you too can come to lay on your tummy if that will be comfortable, preferable for you. So just do what you need to do. Just peel yourself away from your supports and come into the rebound phase of the pose. That opportunity to go, it's like a little bit of a, yeah, I just did that. I just stayed still. I stayed in the pose for 5 minutes. I did that. And exploring the sensations. Maybe sensations in your body are starting to change now with the frequency of your practice. Have you noticed that old aches and pains are starting to subside? Okay, good. All right, so come up to sit, please, everybody. Lovely. And so we are going to go from a back bend into another forward fold. This time into a standard caterpillar, which we're only going to do for 3 minutes, because then we're going to come into a wide-legged forward fold dragonfly. Okay, so because we're going to transition from one into the other, you have, just so that you're not having to move yourself around too much, basically you're going to forward fold into a nice rounded caterpillar. And you could sit on things for this, so cushions, blankets, blocks, whatever you need. And then for when we come into dragonfly, I like to sit sideways on the mat for this, so that the heels stay onto the foam, onto the sticky mat. So sometimes it's quite nice to start off like this. It depends. So I'm just playing around with this so that you don't have to do too much fussing in just a minute. So you might want to put, if you're not on a carpet, you might want to put something under your heels for your caterpillar. I like to sit on something, just a little something, just to encourage the tilt forwards for the pelvis. And then I also quite like to either have a really thick blanket, or my bolster's pretty good for this, just to kind of wrap my body round, to just hang over the top of, because there doesn't have to be the same intensity as there would be for a standard seated forward fold. And the more that you can soften, round, let your head hang, just put some stretch into all the back kind of ligaments of the spine. So it isn't necessarily about the tilt forwards of the pelvis, but it's more about, can you curl the spine into that caterpillar shape, hence the name. If you need to, you could put a rolled up towel, your blanket, something like that underneath your knees instead. So if you find that folding forwards is effective because of having tight legs, tight hamstrings, then having the knees bent and just hanging over the front of the legs like this can also be a really, really nice place to be. Okay, so but if you want the hamstring stretch, then keep the legs straight, and maybe put, if you're using it, put a support on the top of the legs. Another thing to think about is when you fold forwards, do you want to rest your head on something? So a brick in front of you to rest forwards on and to put your forehead down onto. You could even have your brick on your knees, that sort of thing, on your shins. You know, it's not essential, but it's nice. You could have your elbows on your legs and just rest your head into your hands if you want. Good. Nice. So find the balance between there being activity here. So think about where your target areas might be. They might be the legs, they might be the back of the hips. It's definitely the rounding of the spine. So feel the stretch happening down the length of the spinal column, the back. And think about how you're able then to find the focal points, but then become soft. So you're not in the pose having a fight with your own position, with your own body. And we're going to think about the breath again. So you're breathing in for 5 and out for 5. And this is the common theme, if you like, for today's practice. And you could center your awareness in the heart. Now at the back of the heart, because you're folding forwards, can you open up the back space? Imagining your breath is filling up the heart center and making this energy expand so that it can spread out throughout the rest of your body. And again, does the breath sound the same? When we fold forwards, we have more opportunity to connect with the breath, listening to its sound. We shut off our awareness of any external stimulus. Maybe close your eyes and see if you can keep the sound of your breath continuous, even though you've changed your body's natural, if you like, breathing state, which is to be upright or to be spacious in the front body. Can you maintain that continual, easy, steady breath? And when awareness of sensation elsewhere in your body arises, or when thoughts enter the mind, as is going to happen, it's all normal. Just let them float by and go back to the breath. Okay, so when you're ready, I'd like you to take an inhalation and ease yourself upright. Lean back into your fingers just briefly for a moment. Squeeze the shoulders back, lift the chest. Lovely. and then you're going to change your leg position. So take the feet out as wide apart as you can comfortably take them. Remain seated on something if that helps you with the tilt forwards of your pelvis. Again, we're stimulating the inner thighs, so we've got that little bit of stretch happening. Remember, the kidney energy line runs from the bottom of the foot that we pressed into the other night, and it runs all of the way up the inner part of the thighs, up to where it comes through the kidneys themselves in the abdomen. So allowing the inner thighs to get this stretch, and you're very welcome to come as wide apart as you want, or bring them closer together into a less wide position. So please feel free to adjust. Don't force yourself to be in a position that you're not comfortable in. Remember, no pins and needles, no legs going numb or anything like that. And then allowing yourself again to fold forwards. And it might be that you do round your upper body as you come down into your dragonfly. If you have a bolster, it could be on its end, like upright like this at an angle, and you're resting your head onto it to have your arms, just to have your palms on the floor. So you've got something like this going on. It could be that this is in front of you and you just maybe prop your elbows onto it, your chin in your hands, or your head being held by your palms. Some people like to reach for their feet, makes it a bit more active, a bit more stimulating. Some people put their fingertips on the floor behind them. I quite like that because it rolls the shoulders back, but it makes it very much more of an active pose. And I like to look for, if I'm forward folding, I want to switch off. I want to be able to come into a position that allows me to be very still, very low to the ground, very quiet, and affords me that time to really focus on the breathing, or focus on whatever area of the body that I'm directing my attention into. So adjust, adapt, adopt what you need to do. And it might be that your inner thighs are having much more serious conversation with you than they have done previously. And my suggestion is to let your legs relax. Let them release whatever tightness or holding on is happening at this very moment in time. And the thing is, I find this when I practice these poses, that I do that work, and then a moment or two later it sort of creeps back in again. And I have to say to my body, just relax. And so a really lovely mantra for this pose and for many others is let go. And you could say to yourself, let on the inhalation, smooth, steady breath in for about 5, and then go on the exhalation again, steady, smooth exhale for about a count of 5. And reminding your body that it is okay to be here. All right, we want that edge between the line. Okay, do you want to cross over that edge into a pain place? No, you don't. You want to stay just behind it. Yes, we've got our target areas, we've got the parts of our body that we are actively looking to stimulate here. But then we are balancing it with a gentleness and a softness and an easy breath. I'm going to stay for one more minute. Can you keep letting go? Okay. So you will probably want to take some time, and as you maybe take a breath in, begin to peel yourself away from your supports and come upright. Welcome back. And then maybe give the inner thighs a little bit of a rub. And you can either use your hands to help your legs back in, or lean back onto your hands and ease them back. Oh, and enjoy the rebound of that, and just maybe wiggle the feet, turn circles with the toes. You can rock the legs side to side, and just be for a moment. Be back into this place and just see how it feels. Maybe that you can sit up a little bit taller. Maybe you've got a little bit more space. Maybe it just feels that you've shared another layer of that, maybe that whatever it is that's been weighing down on you, and you've become a little bit lighter. Okay, so we're going to spend the remainder of the class lying down. So have to hand eye pillows, blankets, that sort of thing, so that you can come into Shavasana and be really comfortable for the end. We're going to take a lying twist, so you can scoot all of this out of the way. So yeah, so come to lay on your back with your knees bent. Okay. And then you have the option to keep the feet on the floor and just simply roll the knees across to one side. That's quite nice. I like to have the feet on the floor in this kind of teepee position, and then just letting the knees rock out. And it feels quite nice in the top hip here, but that's me. It might feel different for you. If you want more of a rotation to be focused within the spine, you could pick the feet up off of the floor and go for more of a lying twist that brings the knees up more in line with the heart. This arm that's on the same side of the knees can be wherever you want it to be. Could rest on the top of the knees to give you a bit of support there if you want it. Then I would maybe use this elbow to shuffle around a little bit so the back of the body feels quite steady, the back of the shoulders are on the floor perhaps. And then this arm, the opposite arm, could maybe go out to the side. It could maybe be in a cactus, so at the elbow at a right angle roughly. Or some people like to lengthen the arm alongside the ear, and you're either facing the ceiling or turning the gaze in the opposite direction to the knees if you want. So play around with wherever you want your opposite arm to go. There's no rules, there's no right or wrong. And play around with the intensity of the lying twist, whether you want the knees close up in towards you or further away. Just do what comes naturally, what feels natural. Now, there is a difference between lying in maybe a restorative pose, which is just nice and easy, just chilling, and then there's a difference between a yin pose. And a yin is looking for a more active stress of certain tissues wherever your target area is. So you might be thinking, well, lying with my knees to one side is giving me that intensity across the front of my hip, and that feels really nice, so that's where I'm going to work into for this time. or it could be that you want the rotation for the spine, just for that sense of lengthening and spacing, and that could be your intensity, that could be your focal point. And then because we've been working with the breath quite a lot in this practice, so I'm going to introduce to you one more final breathing technique, which we will explore just for this pose. Obviously, we've got to do this pose on both sides. And then we will look to develop this a little bit further in subsequent practices. Some of you may already be naturally doing this. When we think about the breath, as we inhale, we have this upward movement of our energy, and this is prana. This prana has a little p, and the prana is an upward movement. So those of you that come to the Vayu workshop that I did back in March will be a little bit familiar with this. So prana with a little p, prana with a capital P, is energy in the yoga sense that pervades everything and everywhere. Prana with a little p is upward moving energy. Apana is downward moving energy, and that happens on the exhalation. So we always have this interplay of prana and apana. Now what I want you to do is when you inhale, instead of your awareness travelling up your spine, I want you to reverse it. I want you to breathe in, but travel your awareness from your heart down towards the base of your spine or your pelvic floor. Then as you breathe out, your awareness is going to go from the pelvic floor back up to the heart, even though the natural movement of the breath feels like the exhale should be moving down. Okay, so we're just reversing this. So breathing, you start your awareness in your heart center, and as you breathe in, let it swirl down your spine towards your pelvic floor. And then as you breathe out, let it travel back up towards your heart. Now, if this feels tricky, or maybe it would be better doing this in another pose, perhaps, or you're just thinking, that's one more technique, too many for me today, just go back to your steady breaths in, steady breaths out. Okay, so do this for 5 more breaths. And then breathing in and out one more round. Good. Letting the breath return to normal now, taking a few easy, normal, natural breaths, not being in any hurry. Sometimes the rebound happens within the pose once we finish the breathing. And then I'd like you to unwind yourself back to a central position on your mat. Okay, So whatever position you chose for the first side, I would like you to repeat it on the second side. So don't do a different pose on this side. And now come into it when you're ready. Have a play with the back of the shoulders. Make sure that they are supporting the upper part of your back. Adjust your opposite arm to wherever it wants to be, or straight out or bent at a right angle or alongside your ear. Do what feels appropriate for your body. Settle yourself into the position, support wherever you need support. You might need a blanket underneath your shoulder, for instance, or a block or a blanket in between or under the knees. It is okay to do all of these things to make sure that you feel supported and comfortable. And when we're into that place, we are then able to concentrate on other things like the breath. So that, in fact, the pose becomes less important, dare I say it, because we use the poses to get into our bodies, not our bodies to get into the pose. So once you've found your comfortable seat, your comfortable position, I'd like you to breathe. Steadying the inhales and the exhales, breathing in and out gently. And then if you want to, your awareness is at your heart at the start of the inhale. By the time the inhalation has finished, you are visualizing the pelvic floor, the base of the spine. As you exhale, the awareness travels back up and sits back into the heart. Please don't worry if you can't feel these places, if you're having to fake it, okay? It's all right, because with practice it becomes easier. So don't worry if you're finding it really hard to travel in between these two places or to put your mind in those places. Okay, just imagine it or pretend that you are imagining it. It's all good. So let your attention on your breath fade away and just be in this pose. Then taking as much time as you need, like you do, unravel your body back so that you are lying in the centre of your mat. And you may like to hug your knees in towards your chest and take a little rock from side to side across the back of your body, encouraging the spine to lie fairly straight, the body to be symmetrical down your mat, to find that central place where you feel balanced and even. And then get yourself nice and comfortable for Shavasana, support where needed, cushion for head, bolster under knees if you wish, blanket over the top for warmth, eye pillow to quieten the senses. Well done. So snuggle yourself in for our final pose of the afternoon. Okay. So encourage a sense of space and length. Make sure that the spine feels really comfortable. You might want to just walk the heels an extra centimetre away from the sit bones. And you might want to bring your shoulder blades together slightly underneath the back body so that you feel supported, you feel lengthened. I would encourage your ankles to be wider, or at least as wide apart as your hips, if not wider. And I would take my arms away from the sides of my body slightly and turn the palms up towards the ceiling. Let the fingers curl gently. Encourage there to be a natural length into the back of the neck. And try to have your chin slightly lower than the height of your forehead. As you take these last few aware breaths in and out, make sure that the exhalation is allowing you to settle and to sink into the position you've chosen. Becoming absolutely still and giving yourself permission to relax everywhere. The more relaxed you become, the heavier, the more deeply rested your body will be. Feel as though you are sinking into your mat. You are completely letting go. All elements of your body are soft and yielding. There is no more performance, no more trying, no more doing. It is simple and complete. Total letting go. Feel the expression sliding off of your face. Feel your eyes sinking into the back of your skull. And your tongue floating inside your mouth. Picture your physical form as though you have removed yourself from your body and you're upon the ceiling looking down at yourself. Take a mental snapshot of yourself. Calm and peaceful. Know that this space that you have created for yourself, this permission you have given, is one that is going to allow your body to heal. And we ultimately heal through letting go. So take a few more minutes, your own peaceful, quiet place for total relaxation and rest. Okay. So let's start to bring the awareness back into the body. And again, from within the body this time, be aware of how calm and peaceful and relaxed you feel. How good it feels to be inside your skin at this moment. And then you can breathe some life back in. Breathe in deeply. Begin to move fingers and toes and turn your head from side to side gently. And then maybe take a stretch or begin to move in any way that feels good. And then you can bend your knees and gently take yourself across to one side before making your way up to a seated position. Good. Okay, so let's finish together. So any comfortable seated position that is your preference. Take your fingertips to the ground next to you. As you breathe in, bring the arms wide and the palms together above your head. And then as you breathe out, bring the hands down to rest in front of your heart. Close your eyes, maybe bow your head forwards. Just breathe in and out a few more times, just feeling your way into the heart one more time. As you breathe in, feeling this heart space expand. And as you breathe out, sending your love out to all beings everywhere. And then on your next inhalation, when it comes, breathing in, opening your eyes. Namaste. Lovely. Good job, everyone.